All right, a very good evening to all of the participants here at the Auditorium 1 joining us physically, and also a very good evening to all of the viewers viewing online using YouTube or Facebook. So, welcome. And once again, it's that time of the week where we have our Enterprise Wednesday. And today, joining me, my name is Nicholas, by the way. Sorry for not introducing myself first. So, my name is Nicholas, and I'm one of the moderators. And Boone here is the second moderator. And today we are very honored to have Mr. John Russell here. So he's from Bow Plantation. I think everybody has heard of this company, right? So Bow Plantation is actually the largest black tea manufacturer and also producer in Malaysia. So I'll pass the time to him to introduce himself.
Hello, thank you for inviting me here today. And I have been given a most warm welcome and shown your incredible campus. I've looked around with huge jealousy. I've wondered where there was a place like this when I had a chance to go to university. And I'm left amazed that right here in Malaysia, we've got a university with STEM of this standard, engineering, technology, and I can see a great future for the students here. I hope my own experience of living in San Francisco, in Silicon Valley for about 20 years might be of some interest. I think probably the students here, you all get bombarded with so much information, but if there's a couple of things you take away from today, I'll be satisfied. My hope is that I'll give you some things to think about for those of you that want to go and start your own business or work in a startup. Thank you.
Thank you. Right, so I think without further ado, we can start with the presentation.
So Dr. Angelina and I crossed paths a number of years ago, and we were looking at a technology, I think originally started in Brazil. This was isolated, this was a in-ground bacteria or something like that, that was isolated from sugarcane and could be applied to a broad range of plants like legumes to fix nitrogen. And potentially this was going to be a massive revolution for agriculture. And the idea was that we could do a trial here near Kuala Lumpur to test this in tea. And she asked me originally if I'd come and talk to you about agriculture. So I didn't think I'd waste the opportunity of just showing you a couple of things that a farmer might find sexy. And these are pictures just taken a few days ago in Western Australia. So if we can go to the first slide. And you'll see here a new, in Australia, they call them a header. This is a combine harvester. It's known as a Fendt, although this one has a Massey Ferguson logo on it. This machine is brand new. It's just being used on a farm in Western Australia. The standards in which modern machines work at, the technology, you get in the cab of these, it tells you the moisture content, your yield per hectare. They're driven by GPS. They go up and down in Australia, the paddock to within a centimeter of your previous pass. Absolutely incredible machines. The tractor in the picture is a John Deere tractor, was used to seed the fields. And I sat in this tractor 8 months ago as they were seeding, and you're busy, three of you in there, having a conversation, answering phone calls, and this tractor is planting to the highest standard. very accurately in rows. Is this working? Um, the thing to understand about Australian agriculture is that it's super efficient. A farm like this has a turnover of about $2.5 million. Most of the year, there's only 2 people running the farm, so they need super productive equipment. The bottom right-hand picture is a road train. That's equivalent to about 3 of the trucks you'd see on the road in Malaysia, all connected, like 3 40-foot containers. It moves 55 to 60 tons of grain into the port from your farm. Just to give you a taste of that, we can see here what the cab looks like. This is like an office. When you drive these machines, you've got all your satellite information showing you how the machine drives. You've got all your statistics on how the machine works. And what is quite clear to somebody like me is the next generation are coming into a very sophisticated world. A farmer, used to be considered perhaps not a very sophisticated job, but these technologies and some of the other ones with them are absolutely fascinating. As a young man coming from an agricultural family, I wasn't very interested in agriculture. I wanted tech, and I was interested in computer programming, but it's gone full cycle. There's nothing in our world today that isn't touched by the tech world. Everything has a digital component. So Silicon Valley, that's what I think you wanted to hear about, why some of you are here. And I was fortunate enough to spend 20 years in Silicon Valley as a fairly young person, and to see the technology up front. And I felt this was a subject that might be of interest to people here in Malaysia, because it'll give you an idea of what you have to compete against with your idea or the business that you join. And it might give you an idea, the sort of things you're going to need to look for to make your business a success that may not be here. Let's get going. But to help me out, I need some feedback from you all. And I've got a couple of questions from you to help me tailor my information to what might be of interest. So what I'm going to ask you to do is to log on to Slido. And if you could use this number to answer the question about why you want to be an entrepreneur. So if you could use your phones, type in this number 2930802, and we will then share the answers that you have put in. And I guess I can probably put one in myself too. So I'll just give you a moment to do that. So if we could go to the polls, I'm not sure who's driving the control on this, and activate the first question. The moment the question hasn't come, here we are. 293, why are giant companies boosted there? Well, I'm afraid the technology's let us down, because they this is a question and answer has come up already. So I think what we'll do with the question and answer is we'll leave these to the end, and I will try and answer these questions. The control panel on Slido, if you could please activate the first question. If you need me to help, I can come and do that. Why do you want to be an entrepreneur? So if we could please type in your answer and press send, and we'll go from there.
Well, starting off, we already have three. The first three is already money, so we're very materialistic, it seems, and there's actually one that wants to make a difference. So to be different than others. So what do you think about that?
So I think that's a good enough reason. I think a lot of us are motivated by the opportunity that coming up with a good idea and selling it. This latest one is want the world to become better, because I believe it's not only about passion, but it's about making an impact for the goods in the world. Freedom, I think that's very reasonable. Wealth, freedom. And we'll just give this a couple of moments more, and then I think we'll move on to the next question. Creating something of your own is always a pleasure, though I don't do anything good until now, but I do want to do something which might bring a change in the world, and I can see my company beside Google. Well, I think that's probably one of the biggest motivations for a lot of the people I've met that really go out to do something, is they're motivated by their own idea and they really want to bring it to life. Sometimes that can bring huge monetary rewards, but not always. And what I think we're seeing quite a lot of is social entrepreneurship, where you're doing something for the community. Doesn't necessarily bring you money, but the rewards every bit as great, if not greater. I have an idea to save a lot of life. There you are. That's something I think that could make a huge difference in the world. And, social entrepreneurship is well funded. You will find organizations around the world. I know Google does quite a lot of it, but even smaller venture capital firms will help with those sorts of things, provide a service to the world and make it a better place. All right, well, look, I think we'll close that question now, and let's have a look at the second question. And this will allow me to focus a little bit on what I say to you. It's a multiple choice question, and I want to learn about Silicon Valley because. So if you could answer this question, we'll just get a little bit of feedback from you all as to what might appeal to people.
I think we're going to give it a little bit more time, but I think the general consensus that we can see, which takes up 47% right now, is it might help me succeed with my startup. So yeah, that's that.
All right. Well, I think that's good news, because that's what I came here to talk to you about. And at least I'll be reasonably on topic. But maybe let's also address the second question, which is people work hard and succeed big time, and try and understand why that's possible, because it's not unrelated. And I do believe that if you know what you need for your business, you can make it succeed here in Malaysia. And you have to actually look for what you want to make it work. So let's close the Slido, and I think we will move on to my first slide, if possible. I think I can drive that. So talent. Now, I can see at APU, remarkable talent is in the making. And I feel excited for all of you. I can see you're at a university with an amazing mission. And I think that probably the most important thing to lead you or your business is starting right here. In Silicon Valley, there are a good number of universities, and it's a fascinating community because there's so many super intelligent people come to study in the universities. What happens in Silicon Valley is that people come from around the world, they get a place at the uni, they study, they interact with their colleagues, and then they decide they like the area and they stay and they start businesses. And some of these businesses are household names to all of us. It's all right, don't worry, just you can leave it. The environment is extremely competitive. People are applying for jobs, and as a result, very often, quite geeky people are finding amazing jobs. And there's a need for people of all sorts, whether it's graphics designers or whether it's somebody who writes some of the most amazing code, or whether it's around testing or whatever. And these people are always networking. If you go to a party or something, and you start talking to someone, then if they work out that you might be able to give them a better job, then they'll stay and talk to you. As soon as they've worked out that you're just an ordinary Joe and you're not going to be able to change their career path, they're usually off looking for somebody else to help them on their journey. And therein lies one of the most extraordinary things about Silicon Valley, is the labor turnover in most of the companies is around 30%. That means in 3 years, the whole staff of the organization has changed already. And that's because people are moving to better jobs whenever they get the chance. They're looking for the best jobs they can get, and they're looking for something that will take their interest to a new level. It also means the area as a whole is very dynamic, that there's a pool of talent and knowledge that is in the community. So as people move from one startup to another startup, they bring that knowledge with them and help that startup grow. So when you're thinking about your business that you want to launch, whatever it is, getting the talent to help you do it, because no one can do this alone, is so important. So trying to find talent, really clever people that you can work with and help you build your business is one of the ingredients. And there's some other things I'll say, but I think talent, do never underestimate the importance of talent. One of the comments that people make about education is they say, if you think education is expensive, try ignorance. Getting that know-how will be what it takes to launch your business. The community in Silicon Valley, and from what I've seen of what's happening here of an evening, I'm sure you're all hardworking, but they're really hardworking. This stuff doesn't come easy. Everyone thinks, I'll be an entrepreneur and I'm going to make lots of money and I'm going to be rich and retire early. That ain't the truth. You're going to have to work twice as hard as anybody else in a normal job. It really is the only way it works. Companies like Apple used to have 2 development cycles a year. That meant there were 2 iterations of the product coming out every year on time. That meant, I mean, the easiest way is to look at the iPhone. The iPhone is down to 1 iteration a year. So every year, brand new iPhone has to be designed, built, tested, distributed, put on the market on time because people want it at the start of the next school year. The amount of effort and coordination to hold that timeline, get that product delivered is very high pressure on everyone who works there. Long hours, often 7 days, family problems, you're just not home, almost impossible to do with kids. And, you know, the very high pressure environment. So if you want to be an entrepreneur, get yourself ready. You're really going to have to work for it. The community is young. You know, if you're 30 years old, people are already thinking it's time for you to get out the door. And if you're 40, forget it. You know, this is a young people's game. It's super high energy. It's burning the midnight oil, and it's a full-time effort. So, you know, I think after you leave here, you probably find that a lot of the things I say you won't remember, but I don't think you'll forget this one, because when I arrived, they said this to me, and I thought they were joking. If you don't come to work on Sunday, don't come to work on Sunday if you didn't come to work on Saturday. That means you're fired on Sunday if you're not there. And it seems like this couldn't be serious. But the more time I spent there, the more I realized if you're going to be in this startup cycle, it's absolutely full on.
Sorry to cut you off. Yeah, I have a small question regarding like Google, because from what you described, it's extremely hardworking, and yeah, I think that's actually very good because it shows that the people working there are very self-motivated and they're very into their job. So, do you think like because they are that self-motivated and very hardworking, so they get into Google, or because of they getting into Google, so they become that hardworking?
I think you're hardworking to get, you have to be hardworking to get in. I mean, obviously the working hours are long. So, you know, the kind of thing you would see with Google is they provide a bus service that collects people to come to work. And that's probably so they can get a bit more sleep getting to work, because they probably didn't leave till 10 o'clock at night. And, you know, there's things that you'll see like, oh, they offer massages and meals and all these sort of things. It's just because they're there all day long. So, I mean, you have to remember, I also come from a pre-pandemic generation. We didn't have Zoom in my day, so everything was on premise. But I mean, I think the working environment with connectivity that we have today is changing. But at the end of the day, the pressure is greater because it's not so much about being present, but delivering. You know, you have to deliver. If you're promised to write a piece of code that is going to make this drone fly upside down, and you said you're going to do it by such and such a date, you have to do it by that date. You know, that's the new world. It's not about you came to work for all the days up until the deadline and it's not done. It's a different metric. So I don't think it's just Google. I think if you're in that environment, you just accept it's flat out, and it produces its problems. It means you know, domestic relationships are harder. It means having kids is near on impossible to manage the time until you can get to a senior position. You know, these are some of the high pressure things, and I'm telling you this because I want you to know if you've got a dream, it's going to take work. One of the other things that really drives Silicon Valley is capital. So, quite a few of our comments was people want money, and people make money in Silicon Valley. The big driver of wealth for people in these companies really came through stock options. So you join a startup and you end up getting some shares, and you're paid not very much. You work very hard, and sometimes that startup goes to the moon and you get shares and you're very wealthy. But you're often locked in with those shares for 5 years or whatever. You can't sell them. So on paper, you've got a lot of money, but in practice, you can't spend it. That's sort of changed with the bigger companies, I think the Facebooks and the Oracles and Googles of this world are not really the startups. So they're sort of paying the salaries. So that's sort of changed as you moved into the bigger companies. So as you start your own company, you've got to figure out how you're going to give away stock to attract the talent you need and to let the people that join you know that this is going to succeed and they are going to make the money they need. Because as the owner of the business, it's persuading other people to work for you so that they make money is a very important part of this formula. And it's the capital that's in Silicon Valley is different. Here you might want to go along to your bank and say, could you lend me some money? I want to go and start this particular business. And they'll probably say, well, look, have you got any collateral? The Silicon Valley money is much more driven by the idea. What is it that you've got that's going to change the world? It's going to be driven by your team. If I'm going to fund your idea, let's say I'm a venture capitalist, I'm going to fund your idea. I want to be sure that you guys can do it. Do you know what you're doing? Can you really understand this idea? Can you attract the people you're going to need to make it work? And then what is the bit of technology that you've got? What is that magical thing that you've solved that no one else has been able to solve, that is going to be hard for somebody else to beat? And then the pitch. The pitch is one of the hardest things to do. You might have a really good idea, and you need to get money to get this thing to work. And that money takes a lot of time. You've got to go and see people. You've got to present what the idea is, sell it and to multiple people. And how can you get your idea to work when you're so busy trying to raise money to get this business of yours to go? So the only way you can do it is with a team. Venture investors are extraordinary. They're just people that typically have made a lot of money themselves out of a good idea, and they want to invest in other ideas. And they tend to be a sort of small community. A lot of the venture firms are in down near Stanford University in a place called Sand Hill Road. And Sand Hill Road is about a kilometer long. All these venture companies are there, and they put millions into these startups. And the way they work, if you get into their social community, is they're a bunch of boys just competing. I put money in this, and mine's better than yours, and I've done really well, and it's bragging rights. This I think is probably one of the tough things about starting a business in Malaysia. You need to figure out how you're going to find the money to grow and build the value in the business. And a lot of these startups work on a completely different business model from a traditional business model. Traditional business model is always about profit, profit, profit. You know, these startups, the Silicon Valley startups, about growing. Look at Amazon. Amazon is a worldwide powerhouse now. It didn't make money for a decade. You know, it just got bigger and bigger and bigger. So, you know, these sort of things work a little bit differently. How do most of these startups start? Usually scrounge a bit of money off your friends, your parents, to get at least the beginning. You know, friends and family is often the very beginning. And then the first round is the most important one, where you're asking for 5 million to try and get your business going. And it's high risk, and you'll find a particular type of community. These are often individuals that say, look, I'm going to get really rich in the first round, seeing the maximum value being produced in the first round. They will often step out after the first round, and other groups come in as you're starting to get traction. And really, if I were to give you one piece of advice about your product or service, is distribution. You've got to figure out how your product or service is going to get to the widest number of people, the biggest market. Because the value of your organization is based on your user base or the number of customers you have, and the more of those you can get, the better. And as you're growing and you need more money for the next level of growth, you've got to have a more valuable company at each step. So building your valuation, if your value starts to go down for some reason, your user base has moved on to a better thing, you haven't been able to hold on to them, then you're in trouble. So you've got to be growing, growing, growing until you choose a point to exit. And to get bigger investment, next investment round, you might want 100 million. You have to be able to de-risk your business, so it gets more valuable and less risky. I went to a charity auction on one occasion, and they were auctioning wines and other things, and they auctioned an opportunity to have lunch with one of the venture capitalists, one of the biggest Silicon Valley venture capitalists. So I ended up buying this auction item and went to have lunch with a venture capitalist. And they said something to me that one of the things a lot of the young people with these startups do not understand is this concept of expanding at one moment and then consolidating at the next. And it's like a contradiction. So what you have to do is get your product out there, try lots of different things, and then take a breath, say, look, this hasn't worked, get rid of this. This hasn't worked, get rid of this. Consolidate, and then have another go of expanding. And it's this kind of pulse structure that if you're working with big money, you need to factor in, because it doesn't seem to make sense. Are we expanding? Are we consolidating? And you have to do both. Once you're getting ready to sell your business to a big multinational or whatever, often going to, or even keeping a stake, the IPO is the end game. Getting your initial public offering, and it's been a number of years since I've been there, but 100 people, 100 talented people is the magic number. And you would find companies trying to scale desperately to get to this magic number to IPO. I don't know enough about the Malaysian environment, whether you can really IPO here. I think we saw Grab go to the US stock exchange. And really, as you look around in Malaysia, try and see what you can find. As a startup, it's much, much more than just money. If you've got a great idea and somebody says, I'll give you 5 million, you actually will find more value in their network than the 5 million. So if you get a wise investor, they'll put you in touch with other companies that can use your product or service. They will help you meet other organizations that can grow your business. So when you look at capital with the view that it will open a whole range of other doors for you, not just the money. And that's how these VCs work. They support the businesses with connecting them. A bank doesn't do that. They'll just give you the money and it's up to you. So I think let's just move on. I was fascinated by this concept, and I've just left it on one slide for you to go away and think about. Fail faster. And I think this probably has several ways of interpreting it, but it's an important part of the way Silicon Valley works. And if you spend 5 years building the most amazing widget and you take it to market, you've only got sort of one go to be sure it's right. And you might lose everything by just getting it perfect. But I think the concept around fail faster is that you make something simple, get it together quick, test it, get it to market, try again, try again, try again until you get it right. Don't just do this in one go. You have to keep launching products. If it takes you 5 years to get a nuclear power station up and running, or 20 or 30, how can you be sure it's going to work when you've finished? So there's a weird one for you to take away and chew over when you're thinking about your business.
Yeah, speaking of fail faster, I actually heard of this term before. And the phrase was something like along the lines of fail faster, succeed even faster. So, but don't take it by the word. It means that if you try to really put your product out to test the market, and if you fail, you would find the correct way much more faster, and not just thinking about yourself, because it's hard to really think about what everyone else thinks when you can only have your own thoughts. So definitely try in the market and fail faster so that you can succeed even faster.
Okay, I think, one of the key ingredients of Silicon Valley, we've talked about talent, the people, hardworking people, capital, and universities. I mean, I think, as a community here, you're blessed with a truly excellent university, building the digital skills you're going to need for the world you're going to go into. And it's finding that talent. The universities offer test beds, opportunity to access research and assist you with that product or service you're considering. And, I urge you, even after you've finished your studies here, to figure out how the universities can help you take what you want to do to a new level. For me, today's been very educational, just to see what a remarkable place APU is. And I think you may find they can help you, after you've left, and other universities too. This is a saying I came across a couple of times in the context of the startups, the people working in the startups that I met. They never really knew what was going to happen with their business. They were working so hard. They were negotiating contracts with big companies to try and sell their software or whatever it was they had. And you don't know until it's done whether it's really going to fly. And I mean, it's a bit of jargon. It's either going to the moon or it's going to blow up on takeoff. And you've got so much invested, so much at stake, so much stress, so many hours of work, and it's just a gamble. And you don't really know. So I think they're sort of starting to bring us towards the end of what I had to share, just a few simple ideas. And I think one of the takeaways from the United States is that the Americans really know how to scale things. You know, they know how to have something that can really grow. They know how to manage massive events. You look at the US Army, they can do things on a massive scale. And that takes skill. You know, it's something you have to think about. And if you want your business to grow, instead of making one of these or two of these, you're making 10 and 100 and 1,000 and 10,000. And those are things you're going to have to think about. I mean, this is where the internet is obviously a very powerful tool, but how do you get that user base you're going to need? So thank you very much indeed. I'll leave it to you gentlemen to decide how you want to go to questions or whatever.
Right. Thank you, Mr. John. So right now, all of the audience and also the audience online, you may submit your Q&A through the chat box, and we'll put it up to let Mr. John to answer it. So yeah, I think I'll just do a brief conclusion regarding the whole talk first. So brings back to the title, like Silicon Valley, is it for you? So first of all, we talked about motivation. You need to be very motivated to be in that place to work with them. And secondly, you need to be very hardworking, because people there are extremely hardworking. So if you're not hardworking enough, you're not even on the compatible stage with them in terms of competing to succeed. And next, we talk about capital. And the capital works kind of different there. And for the capital, you need to really sharpen your pitching skills, which we do have programs that curate that. So you can join our startup weekends and such from our enterprise at APU, as well as Enterprise Club. So to sharpen up your pitching skills, so that when you get the opportunity to sell your ideas or business, you can actually land the job so that you can succeed. And next we talk about let me think a little. Yeah, next we talk about the expansion as well as consolidation. Yeah, that stage, know when to expand your business, know when to scale up, to try, and also know when to consolidate. If you think, I think for all of the startups, at first you do not have nothing to lose, right? So you can try to do the stuff that you want. But once you get to a certain point, it's better to consolidate rather to just risk it all and try to do it again. If it's what if you invested like too much into it and the risk is not worth it? So then you will need to consolidate. And yeah, I think the questions are starting to pop up. So yeah, we can start to answer them.
Actually, before that, I've actually got a personal question, right? How would you describe Silicon Valley in a single word, and why?
I'd probably say, if I be allowed two words, I'd just say it's high energy. You know, it's fascinating. Wherever you go, you meet people, you talk to them about what they're working on. Either it's, you know, their idea or a company they're working with. Failure is not really a bad thing. You know, people will try something that didn't work, they bounce right back and try again. The more time you spend in that community, the more you find, in fact, the social entrepreneurship is one of the really wonderful things, how people will come up with new ways of working with kids and education, finding stimulating things. Generally, the motivation levels are high, but also so's the burnout. You know, people do get burned out, and cost of living's high, and some people, want to just move on, take time for a family later. So it isn't necessary for everyone. But I my purpose of this subject today is not really to say that Silicon Valley is great. It's like anything; it's got pluses and minuses. But I think when you're going through a startup, you just got to realize you can't do it on your own. And what are the things you got to look for that might not necessarily in an environment like Malaysia be easy to find? And what resources you have to go to give yourself a chance at succeeding. Shall we try a couple of these questions?
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
So these questions, I think, are on the Slido. Is that right? So if you've still got your Slido, you're welcome to put a couple more questions up in there. How about sanctions? Well, I'm not sure this is really anything to do with sanctions. Really, the purpose of this is about Malaysia, and I think, fortunately, we're still pretty free from such problems. Why are the giant companies boosted there? And it's, I think, quite simply talent. If you look at the likes of companies like Google and Facebook, they rely heavily on really good people to drive a lot of the innovation that they have. Just look at the apps that they develop on Google, and they run people. Small teams will run a project. Because I like to explore new ideas, that might have been related to a previous question. Can we scroll down? Are there any more?
We actually have a few from online, our social media. I'm just gonna read one of them out first. What would be your advice to young entrepreneurs when they are pitching their business idea?
So I think, first of all, you have to have what's called an elevator pitch. You've got 4 seconds or half a minute, with somebody, and you have to tell them in half a minute why your idea is going to change the world. And if you've got that elevator pitch right, you're halfway there. You also clearly have to know an awful lot about what you're going to do. If someone's going to put money into a project that you've proposed, I mentioned this lunch I had with a senior VC, and I talked about data storage. And quick as a flash, she said to me, "Oh, that's all been done already." So, you need to know your market. You need to know that you've got something unique. And quite often an investor, the investors are very particular about what they invest in. So if there's somebody who invests in data storage, they will specialize in data storage and they will know a lot about it. So if you come along and don't really know what you're talking about, they won't waste time with you. So, and there's two problems there. One, you have to know the subject. And two, you have to find the people that are interested in that particular subject to invest in that particular thing. Because the whole investment community is very segmented. And therefore, you can go to 1 million people if you haven't been able to do your research and find no one wants to invest in your particular product just because investors like to invest in things they know something about, so they're not going to lose their money.
I would like to add on to that. So what Mr. John is trying to say using the elevator pitch is basically have your unique value proposition out so that you get straight to the point on what you're trying to sell, like what you are different with others. And also with the elevator pitch, I actually learned this from a few days ago. I attended a camp. It's called a halftime technique. So basically, if your pitch has 500 words, you try to cut it down to 250 words. That way, you keep all of the essence, and you can do it multiple times. And then in the end, you get like the most liquid, I would say liquid gold of what you're trying to sell, so that you know that what really is the unique value proposition of your ideas. so that even if when the pitch is longer, you can just write it back to the original limits of words, but now you know what to write in terms of the importance of the things that you want to sell. Yeah. So let's move on to the next question from online is what it takes to create those hard work culture since we're in college right now. Is it like habits or something?
I think, it comes down to motivation. And this is why I think, what you're trying to do it has to be important to you. If you believe what you're going to try and do is going to see you through the journey, you've got an idea or you believe in somebody else's idea, that is so important for the working hard. Work doesn't feel like work if you enjoy what you do, and the hours don't matter if you enjoy what you do or you believe in what you believe in. The problem comes when you're disillusioned. You don't see the vision, and therefore, the entrepreneur who's leading a team has got a continual job to motivate the employees that, look, we've succeeded in this and this is going great, and keep people. So, one of the reasons probably there's fairly high turnover in Silicon Valley is people get disillusioned working for, one particular company. They're not treated well, they leave, and then that company has a huge problem getting talent. I mean, right now, Elon Musk has gone in and he's fired 3/4 for Twitter. So wonder what's going to happen. Is he going to get good people coming back in? I don't know, maybe not. If you don't treat the people right, you won't get amazing results. So, I think that's tech is wonderful, but it doesn't do. We still need people, and we have to treat people right, and we have to motivate them, and find out what makes them tick. What are they interested in? If you've got a great idea and no one else is interested in it, you'll have a hard time. You got to get people excited.
Excuse me, testing. Okay, so I think that's quite interesting. To summarize that, I think it has a lot to do with morale, generally morale of the whole group, actually, not just a single person, but in entirety. Like a good leader doesn't tell people what to do or boss them around, right? They lead, take by example to generally elevate the whole atmosphere of basically all the members of the whole group. So essentially, everyone can do their part, get motivated, and get work done very fast and efficient. So let me continue on with another question, which is actually quite personal. So how was your early journey in entering Silicon Valley?
So I wanted to go to business school. I'd always wanted to go to business school, and a time in my career, I applied to go to Stanford Business School to do a express MBA, and I didn't at the time really have much idea what I'd do after. But as I got into the community there, the energy was infectious. The ideas that people were throwing out. This, I'm afraid to say, was quite a long time ago. This was just as Yahoo was coming out, and the browser in those days was called Netscape. It was the first web browser, and my grandmother had died, and she had done a beautiful story about my father in Africa, and done these hand paintings and written a story about going on safari and pictures of giraffes and seaplanes and all sorts of things. And my aunt had said to me, have you seen this? And I said, yeah, I've seen it. We should put it on the internet. Well, anyway, I took it with me, and I was busy doing my studies at Stanford and didn't really have time to put it on the internet. She nagged me and she nagged me. And I went along to Kinko's, which was a sort of print shop, got the pictures scanned and typed in the story and changed a few of the terms to slightly more politically correct ones. And I stuck it on the internet without knowing what would happen. And Yahoo hadn't really quite got going. But in those days, the browser had some tabs on the top. And one of the tabs was what's new. And however they found my story, I don't know, but Netscape for 1 week had this listed with 6 other items as what's new on the internet. And I could not believe the number of hits this little children's story got. Tens of thousands of hits a day, just people because they didn't know how to surf and they just hit what's new and they saw this silly child's story. And then I started searching later and pictures were copied and made into wallpaper and all sorts of things. And this to me was mind-blowing. It just a concept I'd never come across before. And it made me very proud because my grandmother used to say she could not believe about being in a room and all these radio voices around communicating and she couldn't hear them. And I thought, wow, what a lovely thing to put your story on the internet and get it distributed. So that got me thinking, and I'd written some software before, and I decided to take accounting software and that I'd written basically Oracle-based database forms and things, put it into a web environment to do a web-based accounting system. So I needed to make some money, so I had a day job working in a philanthropic organization and then developing this software, ERP software, and that, and with a family, I ended up there for 20 years. Sorry, a rather long answer, but anyway.
Yeah, no worries. I actually like the long answer, so I get to hear more from you. Yeah. Moving on. What is the best advice you would give to a young college student?
I guess we're all individuals. A lot depends on what you as an individual want to do with your life. I think older people like us look back at the wonderful opportunities that you guys face. You've worked hard to get your university degree, and I think life is in your hands. You have to pick what you think is going to be the most rewarding thing for you, and just go out there and have a go and accept you're going to fail at some things and try again. I think tech isn't for everybody. I think there's a whole mass of things to go and do, and I think tech affects, touches all our lives. But figure out what you think will make a difference to you.
Yeah, that's a great advice. So basically, just expose yourself to all of the fields. If you really don't know what you want to do, so by exposure, you can get to know all of the fields, and maybe just something might spark in you, and you'll feel like, oh, I really like this, and I didn't know that I had the passion for this before. So, and that might motivate you to become the next Jeff Bezos. Yeah. So I think we can have some questions from the audiences as well. Do we have any questions? Does anyone have questions here? If not, we'll move back to online. Yeah, last chance. 3, 2. Oh, yeah, there's one. Yeah, can we get a mic? Yeah, thanks. All right.
Hello, Mr. John. Nice to meet you. I'm Kendrew. I'm currently studying e-business here in APU, and I just curious like how do you, or like what method, or like what do you trust in terms of like finding partners, like because it's quite personal, like and every success story is like different. And what is in your point of view? Thank you.
Oh, that's always a challenge. I think, a university is a great place where you can hang out and talk to people and discuss things and experiment. I think clubs and societies are places where you might find people with like-minded interests. But the world is your oyster. I think your generation has access to communications in the way people have never had before. Um, I have a personal interest in aviation, and I'm able to find people across the world anywhere who, will be interested in some very esoteric little subject and can help you. So, my kids, they're in touch with people around the world. They've met somebody somewhere. They stay in touch with Facebook or Snapchat or whatever it might be. I think it's part of, you have to communicate what it is you're interested in, and I think as you do that, you should be able to find people interested in that subject.
Right. I hope that you have the question that you have asked has been answered. Right. Thank you so much. That was very inspiring. Is there any more questions from the audience face to face? Any more? I'm gonna get 3 seconds. 3, 2, 1. Right. There's one more. One more right over there. Can we get the mic over? Yeah.
Hello. Hello, Mr. John. I just wanted to ask you something like 3 things you want us to work from now on. Things.
I think it depends a little bit. Do you aspire to be an entrepreneur? Do you want to have your own business? And if that's the case, I think it all starts with an idea. It starts with an idea that you believe in, and if you can narrow down your interests and say, is it an idea you want to make lots of money, or is it an idea that I think will help other people? And then you go into that a bit further. I think you have got to figure out what it is that really drives you, because you're going to have to stick with it for a long time and work hard at it to really make it work. And you got to convince other people it's a really good idea. So that's the starting point, and I think sometimes the problem is, if you're good at coming up with ideas, the difficulty is you have a good idea today and you have a better idea tomorrow, and before long you've not really settled on the one idea that you're willing to back. So that's as important too. So sometimes once you've got an idea, you've got to say, okay, now time's to stick with it and follow it through right to the end. Some entrepreneurs say, once you get started, never quit. You just keep going until you get there.
All right. Okay.
Yeah, I have one question more. If it's an idea that I really find it's great, but the community doesn't like, no one likes it, so should I work on it?
Well, I think you need to listen to what the community says. They may be able to explain to you ways in which the idea can be improved. Sometimes with an idea, if you discuss it with somebody, they will explain to you something about it they don't like, or don't you think it'd be better done another way? More often than not, in a group environment, you'll come up with a better idea than you can on your own. So you need to listen to the advice of people around you. But at the same time, if you really believe that idea has got legs and can work, then you shouldn't give up. You need to try and adapt it and test it and maybe fail a couple of times until you see if it does work. So, and it's about determination. I think the the illusion I've tried to dispense is that this isn't easy. You see people who got real rich, done really well, and it's easy to think that, hey, there was a walk in the park. They just made it happen. It never is. It takes a lot of pushback. It takes time to convince people that what you've got is really going to be something that'll change things, so or help them with their lives.
Thank you.
All right, I think because time is running out, so I'm just allow one last question from the floor. Do we have any? One last question before ending? Oh yeah, the gentleman in the red. Yeah.
Hello, Mr. John. I wanted to ask you, with your prestigious knowledge that you've been in Valley for 20 years, what differentiates entrepreneurs who have been successful in their field and those who have not been as fortunate?
I think it comes down to the market. If you just look at some of the companies that have been hugely successful, and your question's a bit like one on the screen I can see here with so many entrepreneurs in Silicon Valley, what differentiates them and what allows them to go and be successful where others are not as fortunate. Take any one of the common names we live with today, like Airbnb, for example. Airbnb started as a house swapping service. So you can come and stay in my house in Kuala Lumpur, and I can come and stay in your house at Port Dickson. And it was a very simple idea. And I think in the end, it adapted to being much more of a simple rental model. And these things do change and adapt. Facebook, started off as just a sort of billboard. It was a billboard on the web, and it turned into messaging, it turned into games, it turned into all sorts of things. So it's clearly a journey, and I think the thing that determines whether it's going to go to the moon or it's going to blow up on takeoff is the market. Have you come up with something that people really want or need? And that's the idea, and that's the delivery. Can you adapt it as you find out what people actually want? And it's simple things like the user interface. For example, our questions today on Slido, people make their decisions very fast. I used to have a subscription to a similar sort of program that produced amazing graphics. I've forgotten what it cost. I wasn't using it very much. I canceled the subscription. I thought, geez, I wonder if I can find an app online to do this, to get the feedback to these questions from you guys today, just to check we're on topic and what everyone wanted to hear about. And so I just went online. I tried the first one. I thought, oh, lousy user interface. Let's try another one. This was the second one. I tried Slido. I'd never seen, quite how the results were going to come out. But, this is the modern world. We don't give things a second go. If they come across well to us on the first go, we like them, I might use Slido again. It was easy enough, right? Wasn't too hard. Most people managed to log in. We didn't have people screaming it didn't work. So, you know, how long did it take someone to write that app? Probably not very long. Does it serve a purpose? I think it was great for us today. Could use it again. And it's not too complicated. So step one, and then they could probably grow and do other features and this sort of thing. So, and again, I don't know very much about Slido, but what's their user base? And if their user base is great, they could probably sell that business and retire happily with a beach house, you know. So I think it's understanding the market, you know, what do people need? And, you know, we're in a new world with apps for everything. I mean, flabbergasted to hear about APU, and they got this amazing app to help people when there's flooding. I mean, isn't that brilliant? You know, in Malaysia, we got a lot of rain. An app like that really can help. So, you know, we're moving to a world where we're all getting used to digitization of phones make such a difference to, you know, how we get around. I grew up having to learn how to drive around KL and what the way was and everything. I don't even know anymore. I just use an app. You know, I think we're all getting used to technology, not just used to it. We need this technology. And I think, you know, therein lies the opportunity for you to take the community forward, help them with something that people need. And you know, at the end of the day, it boils down to what people need, I think.
I hope that your question is answered, right?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, very nice. So I think that's all for the Q&A session. So now the attendance for the e-certificate will be shown on the screen. And for those that are online, it will be shown on your screen too in a few seconds. I think, yeah, that's online right there. And also for the face-to-face ones, there you go. Okay, so please scan that to get your e-certificate. We will send it after the event in a few days. So thank you, Mr. John, for coming. It was a pleasure having you here, right? And also thank you to everyone who have attended, both physical and online. And we hope to see you in the next one. So, Mr. Russell, can we actually get a group picture of you and or the whole audience in the hall?